Vermis Lost Dungeons and Forbidden Woods can be purchased as an extremely in-depth manual for the game Vermis. It doesn't exist. In the book's opening passage, we're painted the picture of a skeleton staring into a well. Presumably meant to represent the player, the skeleton offers us the first of many imaginings of what Vermis could actually look like. The player doesn't just create a character, but through the lens of a doomed and already fading body, it's all they can do to imagine a life they haven't lived. A world with countless choices and adventures that never happened and can never come to be. Across its 128 pages, the author Plastaboo paints a picture of a world so dead, so hopelessly surreal that it feels almost surprising when you realize that, like the skeleton, the most we can ever do with it is wonder what it would be like. What you're seeing right now, the gameplay on your screen, isn't Vermis, nor is it meant to be. It's an itch.io game made by a fan, Adam During. Based on the book, Adam imagines the game as a 90s-style text adventure, complete with the same class choices and mechanics as described in the various chapters, giving a playable context to what was otherwise something that was never meant to have any. Although in the book, Plastaboo goes into detail about lore and stats, the way the game might actually play is almost left entirely to the reader's interpretation. There's no point where Plastaboo actually states what kind of game Vermis is. So while there's no one official version of Vermis, there are 1,000 of contradicting iterations of the game in the heads of those who imagine it, none of them quite fake, but also never quite real. In the wake of all the fans who became invested in this world, no matter how much they wanted the chance to be the player experiencing it all, they weren't and never could be. Although it might be a good representation of what Vermis could be, it doesn't, nor can it ever capture all the possible imaginings of what we might have had in our own heads. By pure coincidence, as I was writing the script, I came across a video titled "Choose a Deity to Bless Your Run," featuring a thumbnail showing what appear to be 5 options to choose from. Although the thumbnail is just a drawing, with the pixelated art style an implication of choice, while you might know that it's not a real game, the first impression is that it at least looks like one. Drawn by Katabura, the image of that thumbnail is just one of a series of game-inspired artworks posted on their Twitter page, all depicting various sections of fake games that never have and likely never will exist. But even though they might be fake, it certainly doesn't mean that people don't imagine how they'd function if it were. See, that video I came across, posted by Cruiser, is an entirely unassociated fan creation, an imagining of what the soundtrack of the game, As the World Ends, could sound like. Not only is it pretty good, but the fact it fits so well with Katabura's artwork is an amazing statement by itself. From just one image, we're able to imagine the tone and feeling of this world to decide what makes sense for it, what kind of gameplay it'd have, and what kind of music style. We're able to listen to the song and actually imagine it playing in-game, even though we haven't and can't actually play it. I think it's especially clear if you look at the comments. In addition to people rightfully praising the composition, you can also spot all sorts of ideas from people as to how the game could theoretically play. Some serious, some hopeful, and some jokes, but they're all real, honest responses. In a way, even though we might not have an actual game to look at, every comment and response comes with one's own vision for what the real versions of these games could be. But in some cases, it goes a step further. Not us as fans trying to make a fake game real, but creators doing everything to make us believe it was never fake in the first place. Catastrophe Crow was originally developed for a 1999 release on the N64, but due to multiple delays that repeatedly halted production, it ended up in development hell, never officially releasing. But although it never hit store shelves, with a few copies resurfacing in recent circulation, this game, once lost to time, can be remembered in the few bits of gameplay now scattered across the internet. But as you could probably guess, none of what I just said ever actually happened. As an ARG, an augmented reality game, the idea behind Catastrophe Crow, or more simply Crow 64, was to blur the line between what was fact and what was fiction. Adam Butcher, the creator of the ARG, started it off with the video titled "What Happened to Crow 64," an entirely scripted narrative formatted like a genuine review, complete with fake news articles and even an entirely made-up person in the developer, Manfred Lorenz. As the story Adam tells us goes, Manfred started the game's development for his daughter Thea, not only basing his designs on her drawings, but creating the game as a gift for her to play after being discharged from the hospital, something that would never end up happening. But while Thea would never get to play Catastrophe Crow, that didn't stop Manfred from developing it. Only, instead of finishing the game, he just kept adding to it, spending more and more days in the office until eventually he stopped going home entirely. It was around this period that his staff started to notice something weird, with Manfred implementing stranger and stranger additions to the game, something he kept doing even after the company's collapse, much to the dismay of his remaining family. It was a few months later when the debt collectors came looking that they realized Manfred had gone missing entirely, with the only traces left being his abandoned boat floating off the coast of Germany and the few copies of the game that he poured his soul into. It's not a nice story, and I think I could safely say it's not the kind that any of us would ever hope to be real, nor is it meant to be. The point of Crow 64 isn't so much to evoke the desire for a universe's existence, but instead paint a story around the idea that it can be. While the game Catastrophe Crow may be entirely fake just for the sake of our entertainment, so is the story surrounding our understanding of that. Although Adam made Catastrophe Crow playable in 2024, making the game itself real, everything that ever gave it meaning or significance still remains fake. The events of the world in which Manfred really did make this cursed game can never be transposed to the one where we actually get to play it in. In an age where it's becoming increasingly hard to erase our digital footprint, to truly forget a game in a way so extreme that it can never be recalled has, in and of itself, become a concept lost to time. Although lost media still finds itself occasionally dragged out of the depths of the internet, it's become so much easier to hide something that never existed amongst everything that could never be remembered. On July 31st, 2010, a user on 4chan reported an encounter with a mysterious figure in their single-player Minecraft world. In the now deleted thread, images depicting the appearance of the strange figure reportedly were taken on version 10.16.02, the same one in which strange anomalies started appearing in the user's world. With trees spawning in with missing leaves, pyramids appearing in the sand, and the discovery of 2x2 tunnels bored straight through mountainsides. Although there's never been anything proving any real significance or truth to any of it, there's also nothing to this day that proves the opposite either. If you grew up with Minecraft, Herobrine is an urban legend you've most definitely heard of, some kind of supernatural and warped version of the game's default character, appearing almost identical but with blank white eyes. Even though the creator and sole developer at the time, Notch, repeatedly denied his existence, it really didn't matter. Although the version of Minecraft with Herobrine in it isn't a real playable version of the game, he's been featured and referenced in so much secondary material that he might as well be. Whether it was videos on YouTube or Easter eggs in the devlogs, even though he might not exist in Minecraft the game, by all means, he certainly exists in Minecraft the franchise. He's become part of the experience that can never be removed, precisely because he was never really in it in the first place. The thing about these experiences that they have in common, though, isn't just that they don't exist, but the way in which they seem to resist the attempts to change that. The playable version of Catastrophe Crow on itch.io not only adapts sections seen in the original ARG videos, but makes a few changes, with new platforms being designed to spell out extensive codes or fake walls being hidden gateways into secret areas. While it's easy to analyze these types of features in the form of videos, media we can easily rewind and fast forward through, playing through them as a game is something that, quite frankly, sucks ass. There's no quick way to jump between these clues aside from using the game's clunky movement to walk. Something that only draws attention to the idea that none of it was ever really designed or expected to be played. Opus Legacy's Catastrophe Crow is only playable because the ARG demands it, not because it's a genuinely fun experience that needs to be shared, but precisely because it isn't. Every revelation added to the game from the videos means something only for the lore of the ARG. The fact that it's even playable is a clue about the change in the story's lore. Nil Lorenz, Manfred's son, apparently released the game to the public on purpose, making the changes previously mentioned to give us some kind of message. Taking it back to our world though, Adam, the developer behind it all, didn't put this out because the game was that amazing, but instead so that his alternate reality would have some kind of story, some kind of conclusion. While the game might be available to play, it only draws attention to the fact that its entire purpose, the whole story surrounding it, is fake. It was shortly after the first Herobrine appearance that more sightings started popping up across the community, not by coincidence, but out of a deliberate manufacture. Brocraft streamers Copeland and Patamus on multiple occasions reported running into Herobrine, initially in screenshots posted to the forums before going a step further of faking entire streams, something that earned them both countless new followers from people who truly believed Herobrine was real. Although both encounters were certainly intended to be taken seriously at the time, it wasn't all that long after that Patamus would forget to mute his mic on stream, accidentally admitting while talking to his wife off camera that everything was entirely faked, using retextured doors and paintings to create the illusion that the original post was real. With the early alpha versions of Minecraft being relatively new, with modding and coding tools yet to be publicly available, the thick render distance fog came with the illusion that anything could lie behind it. While there was, and still is to this day, an uncertainty about who or what it was staring through the fog, with the realization that people have both motive and means to fake it, that uncertainty becomes closer to doubt. Although with mods and recreations we can try to bring these experiences to reality, the problems that come along with that just bring us closer to the idea that they're not meant to be. In a lot of ways, it's easier to believe in these experiences when we can't put our fingers on exactly what they are. The Indigo Parallel is the only game out of what I've brought up so far that you can actually download and play off of Steam. It's not imaginary, it's not a recreation, and it's not a hoax. It was always meant to be playable, yet there's something about it that makes it feel like it shouldn't be. On the game's opening Steam page, the developer describes it as a surreal, mind-bending journey into the depths of madness, in which you assume the role of Tom, a man hopelessly in love with Daisy. Those last two details, despite being perhaps the most in-depth explanation of the game that we get, also happens to be one of its least important aspects. In my first playthrough of the game, I took a left at the crossroads, running into an eye at the end of a corridor which proceeded to transport me to what looked like a maze made out of tape recordings. As I continued to explore the maze, I found all these weird creatures in cages who offered me the choice of saving or destroying them, to which the consequences...
Thank you for saving us. We love you. Now we can rest in peace. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. It feels warm and welcoming.
didn't seem to exist. Nothing in this game really connects or correlates with anything else. In one playthrough I found myself with a gun, shooting aliens, and in another, at roughly the same point in time, the game transformed into whatever this is. I have no idea what any of it meant, aside from the vague notion that maybe Tom, the alleged protagonist, was tripping on LSD. Not because the design of the game actually showed that, but because the Steam description said so. Although there's definitely some story to go along with some of the sections if you look hard enough, the game really is only what we make of it. While all of my playthroughs were obviously the same game, in another sense they really weren't. In games like Skyrim, you can obviously recognize different playthroughs by the logical progression of the choices you're given. Choose the blue or the red people, and the game changes accordingly, yet it still stays Skyrim. The Indigo Parallel more so just has things happen to you. While each playthrough looks different, there's never a strong reason you can point to as to why that is. Still though, every one of those different playthroughs of the Indigo Parallel, despite being completely unlike the last, is still an unequivocally real part of the experience. It's exactly because of that any one idea of what the game, the Indigo Parallel is just that. An idea. Something that only exists in our heads because it's so quick to change upon a second glance. I read a review of the game that compared it to the experience of what it would be like to physically explore the countless abandoned chat rooms scattered across the old internet. They're places devoid of the context needed to give them any narrative meaning or sense of logic. They're left behind just for the sake of having somewhere to be. Like Vermis, while we're expected to imagine what it all means, any one understanding of what the game is, of what any of it means, can never be wrong, but also never true. Any interpretation is only made possible when we make it with just a fraction of the full picture, one that we can never find the missing pieces of if they even existed in the first place. While these worlds as an experience might have meant something more real for the people who made them, we are just the people who came after, left to explore something that was never really meant for us. Fallout 3 released in 2008 to overwhelming critical acclaim, being for many players their first introduction to the franchise. But although most new players found themselves loving the game, there was a notable subset of fans of the first two that felt otherwise. The term Oblivion with guns was thrown around both leading up to and around Fallout 3's release. While Bethesda tried and arguably succeeded in reframing it to pitch the game to general audiences, for some older fans, it was really a term meant more as a criticism. Bethesda only started development on the Fallout 3 we know of roughly towards the end of 2004, 5 years after the last entry, Fallout 2. During those 5 years, it was a period where fans and developers alike expected an entirely different version of the game. Although the name Fallout 3 now produces the image of Bethesda's interpretation, for the original team at Black Isle Studios, Fallout 3 for half a decade was to be Project Van Buren. Van Buren would have stuck to the first two's darker themes and isometric CRPG roots, aiming to improve the gameplay by refining all the quirks that would have come with it. But with badly organized upper management, it was only a matter of time until Black Isle's parent company, Interplay, would collapse. Oblivion with Guns was a way to express the idea that, to a lot of people, Bethesda's 2008 release wasn't the real Fallout 3. While we can all download and play a game with the same title, for some of those original fans, the Fallout 3 that they spent over a decade waiting for was left on the cutting room floor of a company that no longer exists. It is interesting to note, though, that a lot of the original concepts meant for Van Buren were brought back and recycled in the series' next game. After the release of Fallout 3, investors, seeing the game's success, decided that 6 years was too long a time between releases in the franchise. So, tasked with outsourcing the series, Obsidian seemed like the obvious choice, with the team being made mostly out of ex-Black Isle devs, people who not only had experience in making a Fallout game, but also had the unused framework to create one in less than 2 years. Story elements and gameplay features alike, things that would have otherwise been lost to time, continue to live on as core components of New Vegas. But like Fallout 3, New Vegas isn't Van Buren either. Even if these games share the same name or ideas of that cancelled entry, that original version of the game, that original version of Fallout 3, is gone. But Fallout isn't the only time a game was taken from us without even making it to our screens. In 2014, Konami announced the now cancelled Silent Hills with the world's first ever playable teaser. Released exclusively on the PlayStation 4, the game consisted of a single repeating hallway, one that had an atmosphere so eerie, so unnerving that during its availability it won several game awards despite effectively being a demo. It wasn't long after, though, that Silent Hills was soon cancelled with Kojima's departure from Konami, leaving PT to be removed shortly in the aftermath, making it impossible to play aside from the few consoles left in the world that never uninstalled it. And the excitement and news surrounding PT's own deletion, with players paying thousands just to get a PlayStation with the game installed, it's easy to forget that it also meant there was a much bigger experience that was cancelled alongside it. PT was quite literally just a teaser for the real game, a representation of a world that never existed and now likely never will. But although Silent Hills and PT might have been cancelled, we still get experiences inspired by what they were meant to be. For most people, the closest we'll ever be able to get to the real thing is the recordings of an experience that we can never even try a teaser of. For so many of these games, the most we can ever do is to stare into the reflection of the well, wondering what it'd be like to experience these worlds that never came to be. And while it might not be the situation we hope to find ourselves in, I think there's a little beauty in that. It's easy to forget that while we might have to live with the disappointment of these worlds never being ours to explore, every experience, playable or not, is and will always toe the line between being in and out of reach. Whether it's some business deal gone wrong or just a few choices that lead to somewhere completely different, what we only hear about and what we actually get to play is only one choice, one step away from becoming the other. But while we can sit and wonder what could have been staring into the well, we aren't skeletons waiting to vanish at the end of our lives. Our curiosity isn't destined to end with the realization that the world already ended first. Every idea coming from anyone and anywhere, although they might not make the next step of becoming tangible, are nonetheless part of the world, even if they're not in it. These experiences might not be real, but it's the ability to imagine otherwise that means with enough time and passion, every lost IP, every rumor and end to something lost, comes the possibility of something new from the path that they laid behind them. Not just to give us the chance to keep imagining, but the hope that one day something might come out of it. And I think that's something really special. Thank you for watching this video.